We won't victimize you unless you really deserve it. Now, back to your host, Rod Pedersen.
Here we go. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Hour 2 of the Rod Pedersen Show coming at you on this Monday, January the 13th. Episode 154, Canada's only mid-morning sports talk show is right here. Nick Lewis with me in the bunker and Darren DuPont in his Titans jacket. And I got to tell you, as we welcome our viewers back here now, my shirt here, thank God it's an old one, is just drenched with sweat trying to get the Chris Jones interview done. And then once, on the air, clean, and then once we had him on, not pissing him off, which actually isn't, I've never really had him mad at me, I don't think, but Nick, pull that mic right up to you if you don't mind. But for those that just tuned in, Darren, can you explain what happened? Didn't we not have so many viewers and listeners that it crashed?
Yeah, well, the Facebook side, the Listen Live was still rolling, and so it just crashed for a quick second and refreshed the feed. But we got all the good stuff in from Chris Jones, which was awesome. He was really great to have on, wasn't he?
And great questions from you, Nick, too.
Yeah.
By the way, on Coach. You just recap, if you don't mind, for our viewers that missed it in hour 1, what were some of the things that you got out of that from what you asked him?
Well, just how hard he works and how much preparation goes into actually playing football and coaching football. And he takes it not from, most people watch from the snap to the end of the snap. He watches from the moment you break the huddle until the end of the snap. And just that much extra gives you so many clues. And I remember the first time I was on, I made the joke about when we played Toronto in the 2012 Grey Cup. And they knew every run and every pass. And that's because of the work he puts in. And that's one of those things where you always know he's watching everything from if your quarterback has a staggered stance on run plays and has his lateral stance on pass plays, to linemen if they put their elbow on their knee or hand on their knee. And there's so many different clues that he looks for each and every one. And that truly gives you so much of an advantage to have a clue on where they want to go with the ball, because when you're on defense, you can only react. But if you have more clues to know what's going on, you can do a little bit more than react and be ready to make plays.
Scott Nichols in Saskatoon writes in, he says, I'm bummed I missed the rest of the CJ interview. Chad Isaac in Regina says, we lost a feed about Willie going down and working hard, and that was the last we heard. Well, I thank you for the update on that. And Nelson writes that he says, will you have the CJ interview in full on demand? And we do.
Of course we will.
Clark actually said it's all recorded.
Yep.
So we'll just post that as soon as we get off the air here at noon. And I laugh because my friend Jason Fichter from the Rider Prider fan page put on in his group that we were going to have Chris Jones on today. Comments like this. And one half were positive. People are like, we miss him. Say hey to Coach Jones. The other half, don't miss him. Don't care what he has to say. Thanks for letting me know I won't be watching, which you were watching. That's the thing with Rider fans. I've realized after all these years, I don't listen to what they say.
You know, they say about coaches, if you listen to the fans, you'll be sitting with the fans.
I love that one. That's a great one. But that, of course, because that's the one thing, I guess, next time we bring Coach Jones on, I'll ask him. And we are Facebook friends. He might be watching right now. I'll tell you a story. You know Paul Coffey. Nick, you lived in Canada long enough. Yep. You know who he is. And I might have said this, actually. Cooper Campbell, one of the scouts in the States, is watching. He says, great interview with CJ. So he caught it. But we were doing a dinner, Kinsman dinner in Regina. It was Paul Coffey, Chris Jones, and me were the speakers. Darren, you know this story.
Yep.
And I might have already told you this, Nick, but you're going to have to hear it again. We're going through the buffet line at the Delta, downtown Regina. And Paul Coffey is having no problem filling up mashed potatoes, roast beef. Nobody's even looking at him. And Chris Jones, people are tugging at him and wanting a picture and wanting an autograph. And I think this was after year 1. And Coffey turned to Jones and goes, you're going to get tired of that crap real fast. And Jones is like, nope, love it. Just like home. Just like home. Love it. Which I believe it is just like home. South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Do you think, Nick, because you know him differently than I do, you've been in those coaches' meeting rooms, do you think he actually loved being second-guessed by every decision that he made here? Not being able to walk 2 feet without getting mobbed by fans? Or do you think it would wear on him?
I think you know what the job entitles. You know, before he came here, he knew what everything was going to happen. He knew how the fans were here, and you accept it, and you just go with it. But like I said, he loves it. He loves meeting people. He loves doing everything that it takes. Trust me, no one puts in 14 to 16 to 18 hours a day to lose. It's not like you go out there saying we're going to lose. You put in way too much work to go lose, and that's what makes it so interesting and so fun every week is trying to find a different way to win when they know what they believe how you're going to win. So it makes it fun. So I just think Jones loves the attention. He loves going out and competing, and yeah, like you said, he loves his staff and his players. So I think he just loves everything about it.
I think he does love the attention in a twisted sort of way. He knows then that he's having an impact on people, right?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Now, Mark McLaughlin coming up, Calgary Stampeders all-time leading scorer. Still are, right, Mark? I believe he's. I didn't know if it was him or Matt Dunnigan. That's how jacked this guy is when he walked in here. Mark McLaughlin will be with us next segment. Tyler Dacu, our social media advisor, writes in and says, "You know it's a Sasky show when Chris Jones breaks the internet," which he did. He crashed the system, Nick and Darren. That would not surprise you.
No.
But he's not just, look, it's like when Ron Lancaster passed away, and I'm not comparing Jones to Lancaster, so cool it. But Wally, it was this province
again.
Right? Yeah, I know. But this province was in mourning for obvious reasons, and we painted number 23 on the field at the 23-yard line on both sides and all that. And Wally Buono said, Chris Jones doesn't just belong to Saskatchewan, or Ron Lancaster doesn't just belong to Saskatchewan. He belongs to the entire CFL. And of course, I'm initially ticked off. Then I sat back and thought about it. Yeah, he's right. He had such an impact in Edmonton. He had such an impact in Hamilton. He had such an impact here. Chris Jones coached in Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, Saskatchewan. Shoot, that's more teams than he didn't coach with. So it's not just a Sasky show. Chris Jones, as Nick, as you know, his coaching tree's still affecting this whole league and probably will for quite a few years.
Oh, of course it will. And I mean, if you just look at the dynamic, when he came into the CFL, he was known to blitz. He blitzed more than anyone. But then when he left the CFL, he dropped 9 more than anyone. He completely changed the way he did things. He completely changed the type of players he went after. Remember in Calgary when he had Brandon Browner and Lenny Walls, and then going to Toronto and getting Pat Watkins and getting those bigger guys, then to Edmonton and getting Willie Jefferson and some of those guys. So, and if you look at Sam McGuavin, like he talked about, and Moncrief, they're guys that are freakishly talented that, you know, you don't understand why they aren't there already. But then it's mental. They're not ready for that. They're not ready for that next step to be at that profession, right? And fortunately enough, they got to come here, mature a little bit, and then when they're ready to go back down and be able to do what they do.
Now, you did ask, Jones, and I'm just asking you to recap for our listeners and viewers, if anything that he did in the CFL did it rub off on the Browns defense? Am I fair?
Yes.
Right? What was his answer to that?
You know, just some of the clues from when, like he talked about Anthony Calvillo, when he broke the huddle, the first way he looked, they knew they was throwing the ball that way and things like that. So just some of the clues on getting reads from the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, any motions. They would see any formation sets that he could pick up a tendency if it's more run or more pass, or if they go to a certain side of the field, if they're trying to ISO a guy. So it comes back to almost like analytics in a way, but it's one of those things where Derek Taylor's really good at. But you look at the time he takes to put into it and get those clues, and for those guys that don't do it, right, you could get young guys that can go in and just pick up those things, but he's got so much knowledge of both games, and to be able to go down there and produce that, it really helped their defense. They were in games defensively. It was just the offense didn't score.
He knew the things you were doing that you didn't even know you were doing.
Oh, all I did was hop and skip.
Yeah, well, his term is
The tells.
His term is keys.
Yes, yeah. Keys, all about the keys.
Right. So, and I know, but I also know when you mentioned analytics, when Jones came to Saskatchewan, the holdover guys, the video guys and the analytics guys said Jones wasn't that big on analytics per se when he got here, but very shortly in was a huge believer in analytics, just as a tool. He doesn't coach a game based on analytics.
No.
I don't believe.
There's some coaches that do. There's some coaches that'll say if they see you in a certain formation, they want to go to a certain defense because of the analytics. If it's a certain down or a certain place on the field, when you're coaching, you get the breakdown of everything. Everything's completely broken down of where teams like to take shots, where teams like to run the ball the most. Or we knew back in the day, Montreal liked to take shots. As soon as they cross the 50, they're going to take a shot. Or the first play after a turnover, they're going to take a shot. So there's certain clues that you have going into the game, and it goes back to that preparation. And once you understand these things, it gives you so much of a better chance. If I'm a DB, I'm looking for a double move after a turnover, right? Or as soon as Montreal crosses the 50, I know they want to take a shot, so I'm going to be more protective to not jump something underneath. And with Chris, hammering this into these guys and being able to lead these guys with knowledge and not just their athletic ability allowed us as a team to be better and for all his teams to be better.
One more on Jones before I'll have you guys talk NFL divisional playoffs on the weekend that just passed, if you don't mind. But Chad writes in from Regina. He says, people hated Jones for getting rid of the fans' fave players. It was a business, and a business he was good at. He did what was best for the team and not the fans. And I will go to my grave talking about this. Everywhere I go all over this province, every corner, there's always somebody, maybe a few people in the room, that hate Chris Jones because he cut Weston Dressler and John Chick and got rid of Darian Durant and Chris Getzlaff. And I get it. I loved them too. But he didn't do it because he didn't like him. And I do remember, actually, it was Murph who said, sorry for saying, but Murph said, I don't know these guys. Wasn't that hard? They did it for the team. But if you can't get over that, guys, you're never going to get over that. And that's fine. That's your choice.
Look at the salary cap in the CFL and guys making so much money and to only win 2 or 3 games that year. His first year here, would they win 2 or 3 games? So it wasn't
Jones's first year?
Yes.
3.
3. So
it was 3. Maybe 5.
So it wasn't like...
It was 5.
It's 5. Okay, so it wasn't like you were going to win Grey Cups with those guys. And they were taking up so much of the salary cap that you have to make a decision and say, this guy's going to make the difference of us winning, or can I sign 2 or 3 guys that will make the difference in us winning? And probably for those 2 or 3 guys that they got rid of, they probably got 6 or 7 guys that made a huge difference.
All right. One more. Sandra in Saskatoon writes in. She says, today, 3 years ago, Darian was traded to the Alouettes.
Thank you.
So there's some good memories for you. Mark McLaughlin is in the bunker. We're going to get to him next. But first, Darren, did you want to get through some NFL analysis with Nick since he's here?
Might as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
you're a witness.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe the game yesterday with Kansas City and Houston.
24-0,
to go up 24-0 and lose, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence next weekend or this weekend if we go up big early on in a game. But it's still surreal. I mean, how they were able to just make Baltimore look so average. But it wasn't even that. It was just capitalizing on big plays. That was the big thing for me. It was capitalizing on big plays. I've always had question marks around Jimmy Garoppolo and San Francisco. I've never. As good as they've been, I've never considered them Super Bowl contenders because whenever he's, throughout the regular season, really put in a tough spot, late in the fourth quarter, I've never seen him win a game like that. The defense is so good. But in the playoffs, I mean, he was really good. That whole team's really good. So it's hard for me now to pick against San Fran, but it's going to be fun next weekend for sure.
One of the things I've never understood is this generation, it's all about quarterbacks and their Super Bowls or their Grey Cups. Mm-hmm. But from the first time I played football, it was always defense wins championships. When the number one offense played the number one defense, 2 years in a row, the number one defense won. Why do Tannehill threw for 76 yards?
Yeah, like 85 yards or something like that, yeah.
Garoppolo throws for 130 yards and they win. It's not always about what you do. It's about how you manage a game, protect the ball, run the clock. And what they threw the ball 6 times in the second half, San Fran.
Yeah.
6 times.
4 for Tennessee.
But that pass rush, right? The defense that sets the standard. That stop they had on New England at the 1 yard line, 3 plays in a row. That changed the course of the game. That one play, I believe the game's over because I don't think Tennessee could recover from being down 17-6 or whatever it would have been at the time. But that makes that huge difference. So look at the defenses. see what quarterbacks, can you bet on Tannehill to control the game? He's looking better.
Yeah.
You have Aaron Rodgers, who's clearly the best quarterback left, and they're going to be able to put up points. Now, can San Fran match them in points, or can that defense stand up and shut them down? That's going to be the biggest difference in that game.
But the thing is, I'm with you on the defense wins, I am. But at least that defensive team usually has somewhat capable of a quarterback that can still not turn the ball over.
Trent Dilfer.
That's the one team that everybody talks about. Back to Jones here. He was trying to build a defense that would win a championship, but with all due respect to Kevin Glenn and Brandon Bridge, we didn't have the guy. You still need the guy. Or a guy.
You got to have a guy.
You got to have a guy.
Yeah.
It can't be defense only.
It makes it easier if you can score more points.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because that gives the defense leeway.
But as good as Lamar Jackson played, and I still think he played really good. I mean, he
looked really rattled in the second half.
He didn't deal with adversity at all. But when he runs the ball, it's special. He still threw for 300 yards, but Tennessee just kept him in front of him, right?
How many times he slammed the ball down? You can see the frustration.
You can see it. They frustrated him. They stopped the team, which rarely got stopped on fourth down, and they went for it lots during the season. The Titans stopped him 4 times on fourth down. They got that key turnover on their first possession, on the interception, right? So they did all those little things that, you're going to let Patrick Mahomes do his thing, but if you stand up when it matters, you bend but don't break, limited him to field goals, right? 6 points in the first half. Those little things, I think, matter.
Best part about football, there is no game sevens. Right?
Yeah.
You don't get 2 tries. You don't get 3 tries. It's one game. And if you pick a bad day to play a bad game, it just happens.
Well, I was watching, like we all were, the games on Sunday, 24-0 Houston Texans. You saw Danny Barrett with ice in his beard on the sidelines. You saw that, didn't you?
Yeah.
And standing right beside Deshaun Watson. And I'm like, oh, man, maybe DB is going to win the big one. And it certainly wasn't his fault that they just... But Kurt Warner made a really good point on Twitter. He said, listen, this happens a lot. Teams will race out to a huge lead. Don't be surprised when the opposition comes back. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Now, does somebody have to pay a price for that? A 24-0 lead in the second quarter and you blow it? Somebody get fired?
I mean, there's only very few teams that can make that kind of push offensively. I mean,
Kansas City's
offense is like that. And then they hurt themselves with the fumble kickoff return, the fake punt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those things, when you're rolling, you just got to trust that you're going to continue to roll. And the biggest thing is don't give the home team momentum. The home team's always going to make a push. You just got to try to save the momentum, build as many points early as possible, and then be ready for the battle when they do make that push to come back. But they imploded in that second quarter, and the fake punt hurt, and then followed by the fumbled kickoff return. And at that point, it was almost too late. The Avalanche is already at the road.
It's amazing, isn't it? Sometimes you just can't stop them, like the Falcons being up 27-3 at halftime in the Super Bowl. Wouldn't have mattered. The Patriots,
Run the ball.
Right, and they didn't do that. Yeah,
Yeah,
calling.
Somebody pointed
Was that Sarkisian?
Yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed that out to me on social media and said, you got to bring it up today, so I should. But the 2 coaches in the NFC Championship game, the head coaches, were both on the staff of the Atlanta Falcons together at one time. So I know Clark will love that. He'll love hearing that.
We'll take a break. And again, Calgary Stampeders all-time leading scorer Mark McLaughlin joins us right here in the bunker next. Monday morning coffee discussion coming at you, episode 154 of Canada's only mid-morning sports talk shows right here on Facebook Live, and listen live at rodpeterson.com.
You're watching Rod Peterson On Demand. For more of The Rod Peterson Show, visit rodpeterson.com or follow Rod Peterson on social media.